Well, welcome to this overview of the 2021 Devonport City Council budget, which was adopted at our meeting on the 22nd of June. This has been a very difficult budget and required extra community support whilst planning for reductions in revenue and balancing that with making responsible decisions for the long-term sustainability of council. We were able to achieve some community consultation earlier on, and we thank the 29 people who put submissions in, and we considered those submissions at the March meeting. Some constraints, given the impacts of COVID-19, made us look at those submissions over a 5-year period, but we have incorporated some ideas into this budget, including additional parking at the Bluff Meercroft precinct and dealing with some traffic issues near the Sprayton School. As I said, the other suggestions will be considered as part of our 5-year capital expenditure program. I would like to ask now our General Manager, Mr Matthew Atkins, to provide a bit more detail around the budget overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no question the impact of COVID-19 has been significant on the Devonport City Council. Being an urban council, we're heavily reliant on the retail, commercial and hospitality sectors, all which have felt the brunt of COVID-19. Traditionally, councils had a high own source revenue ratio, so in other words, generate a lot of our own revenue rather than rely on government operating grants, and those revenue sources have certainly been impacted. Parking generates around $2.5 million annually. Our regional facilities generate significant income. We've been fortunate to have a large cash balance, which has provided good interest returns, but with the onset of COVID and the reduction in interest rates, that's been a hit for council. Also, a large commercial property portfolio, and there's been a hit there with rents. But it's no single factor. It's all of those things combined that have certainly made it a challenge for council. Forecasting for 1920, at this point in time, we're looking at a deficit in the order of 1.25 million. Pre-COVID, only back in March, we were on track to achieve budget, which was a small surplus of just on $100,000. Deficit's been driven by a loss of revenue over the last 3 months. So in preparing the 2021 budget, council's had to respond to a number of challenging situations. The revenue is predicted for next financial year to be down 3.3 million or 8% on the previous year budget. At the same time, council's had to increase its support for the community. So waiving fees, looking at rate relief and other initiatives to support the community in its recovery from COVID. All rates will be frozen next year, and fees and charges at current levels will be no increase. There's been a close look at operational expenditure to reduce costs, and a number of short-term actions to address the immediate challenges. Importantly, council's kept a priority on continuing with a high amount of capital investment, so capital projects to see construction activity continuing in the city, and with that money flowing through the local economy, it'll be critical for the recovery. So it's in balancing the needs and the support of the community with the long-term financial capacity and sustainability of the organisation. And as a result, council's planning to carry a deficit operating budget for the 1920 and 2021 financial years, and then looking to return to a small surplus in 21-22. Long-term, council remain confident that the outlook is positive. Certainly the high amount of construction activity that's happening at the moment will be crucial for the recovery of the local economy. The Tasmanian brand remains sound. The natural environment that we're lucky to have, the low population densities, will certainly continue to make Tasmania an attractive tourism destination, and with significant infrastructure investment into tourism continuing, with the arrival of the new spirits, the investment into the Cradle Mountain area, the ongoing development of mountain bike tracks in this region, and the new waterfront Living City Hotel, will all see the growth in tourism in coming years, and council is fortunate with its Living City plan that there's a plan and a vision there to capitalise on those opportunities. So in preparing the budget this year, we went through 3 scenarios. Version 1 was based on a best case, so effectively seeing a return to business as usual from the 1st of July. Version 2 that was prepared is considered the most likely, and that was based around a phasing return to business as usual over the coming financial year. And then version 3 was a worst case, so that was based on the scenario where we would see a second wave of coronavirus coming through and restrictions remaining in place for the full financial year. So it's version 2 that council have actually adopted. That's the adopted budget position, based on income of 38.65 million and expenses of 40.85, with an net operating result there of a $2.2 million deficit for the financial year. Just looking at that in detail, so the income's been significantly impacted from last year's budget, down 8%. Rates and service charges obviously still make up the majority of council's income, just on 3/4 of the income. Fees and charges make up a further 15%. Overall, they're down 1.2 million on the previous year's budget. And then the other one there, we can see on the graph, it's now only 1% of council's revenue, but investment revenue has been significantly reduced, and the key item there being the Taswater dividend, which is unlikely to be paid for council's ownership in Taswater. So it's a hit there of 1.1 million on what would normally be expected. On the expense side of things, there's been an aggressive reduction in discretionary spending. There's been a freeze on salaries and wages, council allowances. Any non-discretionary expenditure has been cut to try and offset that reduction in income. But importantly, council's looking to maintain all services, programs and events where it's safe to do so. So they're continuing to provide everything that the community value from council. There's been an additional 300,000 built into the budget for community support through grants and rate relief. And there has been some targeted but manageable reductions in maintenance service levels where it won't impact on the long-term life of the asset, and it won't impact on user groups. In regard to borrowings, council's not planning to increase its borrowings this financial year, and is also planning to continue to fund interest and principal payments on its existing loans. Finance costs will be reduced through the year as a result of some of our fixed borrowing arrangements moving on to a variable structure, and at the end of the financial year we estimate that council's debt will be reduced down to 48.2 million. In regard to how rates are spent, so every $100 of expenditure of people's rates, there's a breakup there that just shows how that is used. The largest item being roads, so $22 in every $100 goes towards maintaining the road network. $10.88 goes towards waste and recycling services. $5.56 towards recreational facilities. $10.58 towards art, culture and tourism activities. So, public open space with our parks and sports grounds being another large area there, with $11.53 in every 100 going towards maintaining the public open space. It is worth just noting the fire levy there, which council collects on behalf of the state government, which assists in funding the fire services. So every $100 of rates, $8.65 of it gets passed on for fire levy. With council's annual plan this year, there's 95 actions that are outlined in the document. They're aligned to our long-term strategic plan, our 2009 to 2030 strategic plan. Each of those actions are aimed towards delivering that long-term vision for council. There's some interesting actions in there. I won't go through them in detail, but it includes a new sport and rec master plan for the city, some investigations into a tourism train, some work on our master plans around our cemeteries, and a number of other actions. So council will receive quarterly progress reports on those annual plan actions. Capital expenditure, council's made a conscious effort to ensure that we do continue to invest significantly in capital infrastructure. Certainly a key way for council to stimulate the local economy as we come out of this COVID recovery period. So the capital program is based on $15.6 million of new works, creating new assets and also renewing the existing asset base. And there is a further $10 million in works that have been budgeted within this current financial year, which will be carried forward, and we see a total capital spend in the order of $25 million over the 20 to 21 financial year, broken up across a number of asset classes, the largest investment being into Living City, and then our road transport asset class with $4.8 million being spent on roads. The $8 million continues to fund the ongoing construction that's happening on our waterfront with the Living City Waterfront Park. Of the $8 million that council is investing into that this year, $6 million of that is being funded from government grant opportunities. $40 million has been allocated to resurface the netball centre at Sprayton. $40,000 is in for the netball centre. $220,000 for walking track upgrades. The section there through Don, just down from Don College, with improvements to the rail crossing also as part of that, and the track out, some safety improvements on the track out around the Bluff headlands. A further $168,000 has been invested into the renewal of playgrounds over at Kaya Place and up near the Splash Aquatic Centre. In the roads program, the renewal of Devonport Road is the largest job, with $1.1 million being allocated to that. $400,000 has been set aside for Wright Street in East Devonport, renewing the section near the junction to Tarleton Street. And council has also allocated $1 million for the next section of the Coastal Pathway project. So the section there in green from Lillico straight back through to the Don River. Other improvements include $104,000 to address traffic issues out near the Sprayton Primary School, $50,000 to install a fast charge electric vehicle charging station in the city, and also the ongoing upgrade of stormwater capacity in Old Acre Street, so $550,000 to increase that capacity in Old Acre Street in the stormwater system to eliminate flooding or reduce flooding that occurs in that catchment further up the street. So overall, to summarise the budget, Mayor, the budget includes a number of initiatives in there to support the community recover from COVID-19. That's been a priority of council. There's been some action taken to address the immediate loss in income with some corresponding reductions in expenditure. However, council's been able to maintain all of the services and programs and hasn't impacted on service levels where we'll see assets deteriorate. Ongoing investments being made in the future and been able to continue all those large investment initiatives, and also continue to ensure the long-term financial sustainability of the organisation.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. As you can see, everyone, the plan has been carefully considered, and the finances to match them have been a difficult balancing act. I'd really like to thank the General Manager and his staff for all of the work that they've done over, not just around the budget, but around making sure that we've still delivered it to our community over the COVID-19 period and ongoing. I know it's been a difficult time and staff have had to learn to work differently, and I appreciate that, and I thank them for that. Thank my fellow councillors for their input in particularly around the COVID-19 committee that we set up. It's really exciting that we've still got a lot of projects happening, and we'll still be able to deliver all of those services that we expect from our council, and that we have been able to keep our rates and charges at the same level as the 1920 financial year. So thank you, Mr. Atkins, and I would urge anyone who's really interested in the detail, the annual plan and finances will be on our website now. So hop on and have a look if you're interested in any particular items that we might be considering, or how we're going to spend that, particularly the capital budget. There's fine detail on the website. Thank you.